Hi everyone, David here, and it's that time of year again. The time of year where you have to ask yourself, do I really need to get a new iPhone? Africa Tech Lab is a channel where we discuss various types of technology from an African viewpoint. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the subscribe button and click the bell icon to get notified of future releases. And now to today's video. This video is about the new iPhones, iPhone 12s, and it's a bit overdue, but I had to sit down a little bit and then think about the iPhones that Apple announced, and sort of gather my thoughts about the 4 new iPhones. First time in Apple history they have 4 iPhones, the 4 new iPhones, and think about all the things that Apple has done with the new iPhone 12, and sort of what my reaction is to the new Apple ecosystem. And so I sort of divided my thoughts into 3 categories. I thought about the good things that are good with the iPhone 12, the things that are sort of meh, I'll call it, not so good, and then the things that are, well, missing, in my opinion, from the iPhone 12 and the current Apple ecosystem. So I'm calling this iPhone 12, the good, the meh, and the missing. Okay, so in case you missed the Apple event, which I've linked the official Apple event and a short version done by the Verge in the links below. Basically, in summary, Apple launched 4 new iPhones and the HomePod Mini. I'm not going to talk about the HomePod Mini because, frankly, not so many people are going to be interested in that. The large majority of you are here to watch for my thoughts on the iPhone 12. So let's get into it. So first thing about the iPhone 12 that I like is the fact that it's smaller and lighter than the iPhone 11. I like the new boxy design. I think it's more comfortable. It will be more comfortable to hold than the old iPhone 11s. Apple says it's a new design, but come on, we've all seen this design in the iPhone 4 before, so I'm not sure how new it is, but fair enough. Then we have the fact of another fact that I think is good about the iPhone 12 is the new iPhone 12 Mini. It has the same processor as all the iPhone 12s, and it's in a really small form factor. It's comfortable to carry, can fit in your pocket, and it has an even larger screen than the iPhone SE because even though it's a smaller phone physically, it has way smaller bezels, so it has a 5.4-inch display, while the iPhone SE, the second generation, has just 4.7 inches. So I'm excited to know exactly how that phone will be and what it will be like to use it. But the only downside I'll say about having such a small phone is that you can't physically fit such a large battery into it. So I'm curious what the battery life will be on the iPhone 12 Mini, but then that remains to be seen. Third thing I really like about iPhone 12s is the display. The iPhone 12s upgraded from the iPhone 11s. They upgraded the iPhone 11's LCD display to an OLED, so the screen is sharper with far better contrast, and you get that across all the iPhone 12s, unlike iPhone 11s where you had the OLED display on the iPhone 11, and then so you had the LCDs on the iPhone 11 and the OLEDs only on the Pro models. So that's also the third thing I think is really good that Apple did with the iPhone 12s. So the last item I'm thinking about the display is the fact that, well, Apple says they have a new ceramic shield, which is supposed to be 4 times more drop resistant than the old iPhone 11. Well, I don't think anybody's tested that yet, so it remains to see if it works. So those are my top 3 things I think is good about the iPhone 12. Now we move to what I call the meh aspects of the phone. So the number one thing I think I would say is probably just meh, is the so-called hyped 5G. Now, I get it. It's important that the whole telecom industry markets the 5G as the fastest, the newest thing on the block, and they have to do something to make themselves relevant. So yeah, that makes sense. But in most parts of the world, 5G is just the coming soon feature to most networks. And even if you do look at where 5G is supposed to be the newest thing in the US, very few areas actually do have 5G coverage. So I do wonder why they're hyping 5G so much, considering that most of us are not going to benefit from this so-called new feature anytime soon. So, I mean, think about it. 5G is expensive in terms of battery life. You need an expensive 5G chip, you need an expensive 5G antenna. There's no 5G network anywhere in West Africa, as far as I know. In fact, even some of our so-called 4G networks, I did a survey on some of the MTN cell towers about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Half of the towers in my area are still 3G. Less than 50% are so-called 4G. So I don't think 5G is a feature that's going to make any difference to most users in West Africa anytime soon. And then another thing you have to worry about 5G is, like I said earlier, the battery life. I mean, it's going to take a big hit on battery, which is why Apple has this new smart data mode that switches off 5G when it's not necessary. I mean, even Apple knows that it's going to affect battery life, so they turn it off when they don't use it. So in terms of how it affects everyday users, it's definitely a big meh. I mean, they should have used if they had any available space on the phone for probably a bigger battery or 120 hertz, maybe, Apple. Well, maybe for the iPhone 13, perhaps. Okay, the next meh feature is the A14 Bionic. Once again, it's a feature that is good on paper, but really, how many of us are going to see an improvement in terms of processor speed between the A13 and the A14? I mean, the A13 is pretty good already. For anybody who has an iPhone 11 or an iPhone SE second generation, there's probably no app you're unable to run on your device already as it is. So having a newer, faster 20-30% improvement in speed is not going to make a difference for most users, but well, Apple has to market their new silicon, so fairly understandable that they're pushing the improvements in the A14 Bionic, but for most users, it's just going to be meh. Okay, third thing I think is meh about the new iPhones is the MagSafe, so-called new MagSafe accessories. I'm not really a fan of wireless charging anyway, because one, it's definitely not going to be as fast as wired charging. Wired charging will always be faster. Two, in terms of its effect on the environment, there's a lot of waste power that is used when you do wireless charging versus wired. So if Apple really wants to be green, as they say they are, they should actually think about other ways they can reduce energy consumption when charging their iPhones. And while I do admit that MagSafe might probably give you a more secure attachment with your wireless charging, what would have been better? Apple would have been USB-C. USB-C carries far more charge capacity than the Lightning connector. And also, if Apple, as they did, is removing the chargers from the boxes, it would have made more sense to have a USB-C connector, because almost everybody who has an Android phone or a laptop has a USB-C connector at home. So instead of buying a new adapter to charge your iPhone, you could use the adapters you already have at home for your USB-C ports if the iPhone 13 did have a USB-C port. So MagSafe, good on paper, but in terms of its effect on the consumer, once again, it's another meh feature. And finally, for me anyway, the last meh feature is the new cameras. I mean, spec for spec, there really isn't much difference between the iPhone 11 and the iPhone 12 when it comes to the camera department. if you look at the iPhone 11 Pro and 11 Pro Max, they were almost identical apart from size, but the change when it came to the iPhone 12 between the Pro and the Pro Max is so different in terms of the camera specs. I mean, the Pro Max is the only one that gets a larger light sensor, and it's the only one as well that gets the whole 10-bit Dolby Vision recording features. The 12 Pro is so much closer to the iPhone 12 as how way more than the 11 Pro was closer to the iPhone 11. So I'm not really sure why Apple is saving all its best Pro features only for the Pro Max and leaving the 12 Pro out in the cold. But personally, I think Apple just wanted the medium to show off their new technologies and then decided to add it to the Pro Max only. Not too sure why. But honestly, come to think about it, how many people have Dolby Vision capable TVs? How many people in Africa even have 4K TVs? Talk less of Dolby Vision and HDR. So once again, it's a feature that when it comes to our part of the world, it's definitely going to be quite meh. So now we move on to the items that I think I'm missing. And there are 4 things that I really would have loved to see on the new iPhone models, the iPhone 13, so iPhone 12 models. The first thing that is missing is Touch ID. And I really do not understand why Apple decided to leave out Touch ID from their new models, because they added Touch ID to the new iPad Air. And there's this thing going on in the world called a COVID-19 pandemic. And I don't know about you, but if you've ever tried unlocking your phone with Face ID while you're wearing a face mask, it is always touch and go. It's not always accurate. Even though Apple has updated iOS to make it easier to use Face ID with the face mask, Touch ID is always going to be way faster and more accurate if you're wearing a face mask. So at least they should have given users the choice between Touch ID and Face ID, but there is no fingerprint sensor, no Touch ID sensor on any of the new phones. So again, that would have been nice to have. Another advantage of a Touch ID feature would have been they could have removed the notch, which I've never been a fan of notches. I always thought a hole punch is smaller, it's more aesthetically pleasing, and takes up less screen real estate. The notch, even though Apple did it and everybody started copying them, has never really been a feature that should be emulated. So they're keeping Face ID around for another year, fair enough. But hopefully with the iPhone 13, they give us a choice between Face ID and Touch ID, or add an under-screen fingerprint reader, perhaps. Maybe that's what they're planning to do with the iPhone 13. We'll probably find that out in a year's time. Second feature that is missing that would have been nice to have would have been a 120 Hertz refresh screen. And I cannot emphasize how much I was hoping Apple will add this feature, because, I mean, think about it. If you have a screen, when you're using your phone, the thing you're interacting with the most is your phone screen. You want that screen to be as high quality as it can be, because that is basically the surface, the medium through which you're communicating and interacting with your phone. So if you have the option of having a screen that refreshes 60 times every second versus 120 times every second, 120 is always going to be smoother, animations will be faster, scrolling and using your phone will seem a whole lot more fluid. And anybody who uses a 60 Hertz phone versus a 120 Hertz phone will always say that the 120 Hertz phone feels faster and smoother to use. Everybody. So why go for 5G, which only a small percentage of users will benefit from, versus 120 Hertz, where all your users will benefit from? Okay, third feature I think is missing. I've talked about the lack of a USB-C port. USB-C definitely would have been nice to have, but maybe iPhone 13, possibly. Well, we'll find out next year. Okay, and now I come to I promised you guys that I would talk about how the new iPhones are going to affect or will have an impact in the technology landscape in West Africa. And I think it's going to affect things in three ways. First being, if you look at the new iPhone 12 Pro lineup, they've eliminated the 64 gig models. So iPhone 12 Pro start only at 128 gig, which is interesting because if you've ever tried to buy an iPhone in West Africa, you would realize almost everybody sells the 64 gig models and almost nobody has 128 or 256. And if you do find them available, the markup is always tremendous. It's as if you need to pay a special price for daring to want to have more storage on your phone. So eliminating the 64 gig is definitely a good move because now nobody needs to have 64 gig on their phone. Once you install a few applications, have a few files on there, you've used definitely at least 3/4 of the space. And you always have to either get iCloud storage in order to have more space, or always constantly be shifting things off your phone. I'm using a 64 gig 11 Pro to do this recording, and I can tell you how difficult it is to have 64 gig phone as your main shooter. So it's really good they're having the 128 as the starting base. So at least if you have a Pro phone or you're going for a Pro model, you know that you're starting with 128 gig minimum. That's definitely a good plus. Another way it's going to affect the African technology market is the fact that now we have the new iPhones. Definitely the prices of the old ones are going to drop. And way more than Android devices, the ecosystem for second-hand iPhones is a lot more active. So now with the new models, the iPhone 11 Pros, the iPhone 10s, the 8s, the 7s, all the old second-hand iPhones that are still in circulation in the market are going to have a drop in price, making it easier for a lot more people to get into the iOS ecosystem. And in addition to that, the fact that now we have the iPhone 12 mini, which is going to be priced way lower than the typical iPhone 12, also makes it easier to get into this ecosystem. In fact, I'm going to put up a chart about the current range of iPhones that Apple is selling. It starts all the way from low end, from the iPhone SE, the second generation, all the way to the iPhone 12 Pro Max. And you can see that whole gamut means that no matter which price point you're looking at, there's an iPhone 12 or iPhone 11 or iPhone 10R model available, no matter your budget. The thing about that was that if you do look at all the models available, the iPhone 10R is definitely the weak link in that bunch because one, it is getting to about 3 years old hardware at this point. The iPhone SE, the newer generation iPhone SE, is way cheaper, has a faster processor, and is going to have updates for much longer than that device. So if you are thinking of getting an iPhone 10R, my recommendation will be either save some money and get the SE instead, or add a little bit more and get an iPhone 12 mini. Do not get an iPhone 10R. It would not be a smart purchase at this point. Okay, so I think that about wraps it up. So what I'll say is that if you're thinking about upgrading to the new iPhone 12, I think if you have an iPhone 11 or an iPhone SE second generation, these are all running the A13. I really would not upgrade at this point because in terms of features, unless you really want to have 10 bits HEVC Dolby Vision recording on the 12 Pro Max, in terms of features, there really isn't that much compelling difference to upgrade. If you have access to 5G networks and you really want 5G, you can consider upgrading, but if you don't fall into either of these two categories, I really wouldn't recommend an upgrade right about now. If you're running an older hardware, anything from iPhone 10 and below, then you would really benefit from the speed of the new iPhone 12. So in that case, you can consider upgrading. But other than that, I think you should skip Apple's newest and best for this year, and then hopefully 120 Hertz, USB-C, iPhone 13. Those will be very good reasons to upgrade next year. So save your money for one more year and then consider the iPhone 13, at least in my opinion. Okay, so what do you think? Do you agree with what I said? Do you have any contributions, any other opinions? Or do you think that there's something else you've missed out or Apple missed out on the iPhone 12 that they should have added? You can comment down below, let me know your thoughts. I do plan to do more videos like this very soon on this channel. So if you like this type of content, you can click the like button. And also to see the newer videos we have coming out, you can subscribe and then click the bell icon as well so you get notified whenever a new video drops on the channel. I do have something in mind. Like I said earlier, I'm currently rocking an iPhone 11 Pro. That's my daily driver. And I have actually jailbroken that phone, and I have a couple of jailbreak tweaks and modifications on it that make it way better than stock iOS. So I'll be sharing how to do that with you in my next video. So like and subscribe and click the bell icon so you get notified when I do release that. Okay, so that is it. This is David. If you have any other comments or contributions, leave them down below. But for now, enjoy your tech and stay safe.